Hello and welcome to the Band-in-a-Box RealDrums tutorial video. In the beginning of this video, we'll give you an introduction to RealDrums and show you how to access them and listen to them in Band-in-a-Box. In the second half of the video, we'll show you how to actually create your own RealDrum styles. We'll start by explaining just what RealDrums are. RealDrums are real drums. They are recordings of actual studio drummers playing in a variety of styles at a variety of tempos. Right now we're listening to a RealDrums jazz style that is using brushes, played by a real live drummer. Just for some perspective, let's listen to the old MIDI drums for a second. This is the RealDrums settings dialog. We'll explore this more later, but for now we'll just use it to turn off RealDrums. And here we have MIDI drums, which clearly do not sound nearly as good as the real drummer. Now, the RealDrums consist of various audio files of drum parts recorded at various tempos. Now have a look at the tempo. It's 145 beats per minute. Now if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see RealDrums, jazz brushes, 145. What this means is that for this drum track, the drums were actually recorded at 145 beats per minute. Band-in-a-Box then intelligently pieces together various parts of the original recording to come up with a brand new drum track every time you press play. If I increase the tempo to 155 beats per minute and press play again, you will see that at the top of the screen it still says Jazz Brushes 145. What Band-in-a-Box has done now is still use the Jazz Brushes 145 audio wave file and pieced it together in the same fashion, but it's taken that and stretched it up by 10 beats per minute. But now let's up the tempo just a little bit more, say to 165 beats per minute, and press play. You can see that it has now changed from Jazz Brushes 145 to Jazz Brushes 175. What this illustrates is that Band-in-a-Box picks the wave file that is closest in tempo and stretches it accordingly. This is significant for two reasons. First of all, it minimizes the amount of stretching that is required. Secondly, and more important, this means that whatever tempo you select, the drummer will be playing appropriately for the tempo. This can be most dramatically demonstrated by playing this same file at extreme low and extreme high tempos. So let's listen to the same song played at 60 beats per minute. So this drum part has actually been recorded at 60 beats per minute. So there are many subtleties in the part that are specific to low tempo playing. Now let's stop and change the tempo to 300 beats per minute. And again, the drummer here was recorded at 300 beats per minute. So the playing is exactly right for the task at hand. Now let's have a look at some Band-in-a-Box styles that have RealDrums assigned to them. Now we'll open the style picker, and as you can see we have styles with RealDrums selected. All of the styles in this list have a minus sign in front of them, and that's the naming convention that indicates that the style has a RealDrums assignment. So for example, we'll select Rap Jazz 1 and press Load Song Demo, and the hip-hop RealDrums automatically get loaded and played with the song because they are assigned to this specific style. Style Set 64 is a style set designed specifically with extreme tempos, either high or low, in mind, and these work great with RealDrums. Here is Rock 200, specifically designed to be played at a fast tempo, and this is the RealDrums version. So you can see that Rock Even 8 200 has been automatically loaded and is playing. But you can use RealDrums even with Band-in-a-Box styles that don't have a RealDrums assignment. That's where the RealDrums settings dialog comes in. First of all, Enable RealDrums needs to be selected for any RealDrums to play at all. Now there are several ways that you can use RealDrums with band-in-a-box styles. First of all, you can have band-in-a-box automatically choose the best match for whatever style you happen to currently have loaded. And you can set a threshold here for determining whether or not the match is good enough to replace the MIDI drums. I'll show you what I mean. I'll set this to substitute rarely, only if RealDrums are way better than the MIDI drums. I'll then open the style picker and I'll find the demo for 60s rock ballad. The MIDI drums are now playing because we set the threshold very high for determining whether or not to make an automatic replacement. You can also tell that MIDI drums are playing because the text drums is in yellow like all of the other MIDI instruments. When RealDrums are playing, this text appears in green. But then if we open the RealDrums settings again and we change this to a slightly lower threshold, then when the drums return, we'll be hearing RealDrums. And as you can see, it is now playing Rock Even 8 75. Now, not all band-in-a-box styles will have as good a match, so in these cases you would need to set your threshold lower in order to get a substitution. For example, if I load the demo for Alberti, there are no RealDrums and no drums at all. But if I go back into the RealDrums setting, if I change this to always find a match, it has then found Bossa Brushes 120. Now if you don't have the first match of RealDrums installed, you can also set a threshold for determining a different match. And if you want complete control over which RealDrums get used, you can set a specific RealDrum style for a specific song. If we wanted, for example, Jazz Even 8 to play over this piece, we could simply put a check mark here and select Jazz Even 8 here. And now we're getting a cool fusion jazz drummer playing along with a classical pianist. The last thing we'll show you in this portion of the video is how to assign a RealDrum style to a band-in-a-box style. For example, say we like this combination of the classical piano with the Jazz Even 8 drums and we want to make an actual style out of it. We can do this in the Style Picker, which can be accessed from the Styles menu, and we'll select Edit Current Style. Now the first thing that we'll do is save it with a different name because we don't want to change the original. So we'll pick Save As. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the naming convention for RealDrum styles is with a minus sign. So we'll simply put a minus sign in front of this and save it. Now all we have to do is press the Miscellaneous button and we can add the RealDrums. Now there are a few other options available. If it's too loud, you can lower the decibels here. Or if you want to, you can only adjust the volume level for the A subsection plane or the B subsection plane. We'll adjust the overall level to -5 because the MIDI instruments in this style are particularly quiet. You can also adjust these settings if you want patterns for either the A section or B section to be played throughout the whole piece, regardless of whether it's supposed to be A section or B section playing. We'll be learning more about A and B sections in part 2 of the RealDrums video. So we press OK, and then save, and exit. Now when we play the song, we're hearing the Jazz Even 8 drums. And anytime we pick this particular style, we'll get this combination of instruments. That's all for part 1 of the RealDrums video. In part 2, we'll explore the RealDrums in more depth and show you how to make a RealDrum style of your own.